Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his housing minister are making an announcement in London. Let's listen in.
To young people who feel like cities are turning their backs on them. When housing is that expensive, young people feel like cities don't want them. They feel like they can't succeed. But if young people can't succeed in our cities, then where can they succeed? That's why we're addressing this. I mean, housing in big cities around the world has already become out of reach for many, in places like New York, Paris, London, San Francisco. But we're not going to follow those examples. Les familles, les jeunes, tous les Canadiens
Families, young people, all Canadians expect their leaders to work together to address major issues such as housing. For the first time, we're pulling up our sleeves to build more housing in Canada. We've done it in the past, and we'll do it again if we all work together.
When we launched the $4 billion Housing Accelerator Fund, a fund to build more homes faster, we told municipalities that they could access those funds with bold plans to eliminate red tape and remove barriers. We were clear
that there is too much municipal regulation that is making it too difficult to build housing for our communities. We were clear that local rules need to change and that local governments as well need to be more ambitious. We will be there to support their ambitions.
Here we are today with a very first agreement under the Housing Accelerator Fund. After we launched the fund, Mayor Josh Morgan and his team got to work. When we saw that Josh's plan was ambitious and serious, we said, okay, let's get him funding so he can fast-track the building of more housing here in London. Josh, the Accelerator Fund was created to build more homes faster. And of all the mayors across the country, you were the fastest to step up with an absolutely visionary proposal. We put out a framework of ambitious things we needed to see from municipalities in order to access this funding, to look at all the various barriers that are slowing down the construction of housing supply at a time when it's needed. And we asked the hardworking people at City Hall and in the mayor's offices to step up to see what were those barriers that we could eliminate, how we could get shovels in the ground faster, how we could get people into homes, particularly affordable homes, particularly homes near transit infrastructure as quickly as possible. So based on Josh's success and the announcement we're making right now, I want to challenge other mayors right across the country to step up with their proposals too, so we can get building more homes, increasing supply, and lowering the prices for families. La promesse du Canada, c'est d'améliorer la qualité de vie à chaque génération.
Enhance living for each generation. Now, we are going through difficult times, and even more than ever, we need to make sure that Canada's promise holds.
The promise of Canada. It's one that says that every generation gets to benefit from the hard work of the previous generation and succeed even more. Well, for far too many people, that promise of Canada seems under threat. And that's where Ariel and Peter and Sean and I and our entire team are focused on securing that promise of Canada. The promise that when you work hard, you can get ahead. That's what it's all about. We're focused on building more homes by working with all orders of government, with Indigenous communities, with labor, and with private and nonprofit partners, because that's what it'll take, everyone working together. I look forward to our caucus retreat this week to continue this work, and we'll have more to say very soon on our plan to make life and housing more affordable for Canadians. Canada is the very best country in the world. Let's keep working hard to make it even better. With that, I'm happy to pass it over to Sean Fraser. Sean.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, for what is an important day in the path forward for the federal government's housing policy that's going to get more homes built in this country. Merci tout le monde. Avant de commencer, je veux remercier mes collègues pour être ici aujourd'hui et pour m'accueillir le City de London pour la première fois.
And for being here for this announcement for the first time in London.
With colleagues over the next few days to discuss the path forward for the Government of Canada, not just on housing, but on some of the policy areas that we know are most important to Canadians. But specific to today's announcement, let me start by acknowledging we're living in a housing crisis in this country. It's impacting real people in real communities in very, very real ways. The reality is there's no one reason why there's a housing shortage that's impacting families. There's a number of different reasons, and today's announcement is addressing one of them head on. And that's the way that cities build homes in this country, and in some instances, the way that cities don't build homes in this country. The reality is, over the course of generations, we've seen different communities across the country make decisions that actively restrict the ability of communities to build houses for their residents. This isn't okay. It manifests itself in the most bizarre ways, with sluggish permit approval processes, with zoning challenges that prevent housing from being built, with a lack of transit and public infrastructure that make communities livable. Today we're announcing a new path forward, and we're starting here in London. We're going to use federal leadership and federal funding to change the way that cities build houses. You know, London is an extraordinary example that's going to benefit from this fund. This is a $4 billion fund, by the way, that is a direct injection into the bottom line of cities who actually change the way that they build homes. Les fonds pour accélérer la construction de logements.
The Housing Accelerator Fund is a $4 billion injection for communities and the government that is changing how housing is built. We are conscious of building affordable housing for Canadians across the country.
And one of the reasons I find London is particularly appropriate is not just because the city and the mayor demonstrated leadership to get out the door most quickly, but because the challenges facing London are indicative of some of the challenges that we experience in cities across this country. This is an incredible community with a growing economy, with post-secondary institutions that are first-rate at Fanshawe College, Western, where I met student leaders just yesterday to discuss some of the housing challenges that the student bodies are facing. And despite the opportunities for growth, despite the vibrancy of the community, despite the many opportunities I see here in London, there's real challenges. I met with service providers for vulnerable populations yesterday who described to me the extent of the homelessness challenges that are actually translating into healthcare challenges for their community. Some of the students that I met with told me that they're living 40 minutes away from their campus and don't have meaningful access to transit, which they need because they can't find a place they can afford close to their classes. When you spend almost an hour and a half a day commuting to classes, that's time you're not spending building social relationships. That's time that you're not spending focused on your studies at a time in your life when that's what you should be doing. We can change that if we actually work together. There's additional challenges facing this part of Ontario in particular. The drive to buy phenomenon that has seen people come down the 401 from the GTA until they can afford a place to live is putting unique and unprecedented pressures on the cost of homes here and the cost of a place to rent. We can change this if we work together. Look, I want to tell you a story about how this announcement came to be. This is a project that started shortly after I became the minister responsible for housing, when I had the opportunity to leaf through the Housing Accelerator Fund applications. London's was particularly strong. I decided I was going to write a letter to Mayor Josh Morgan indicating some of the reasons I thought he had a strong application, including their partnership with nonprofits, including changes to their zoning density policy, including the adoption of digital permits that's going to actually speed up the process of giving permission to say, yes, we want to build homes in this community. And I can't tell you how excited I was because I had the opportunity to push them a little further. And I said, I like what you're trying to do, but I think we can do more if we work together. You can do more to build housing near university campuses and college campuses. You can do more to build housing near transit. You can do more to legalize housing, because communities across this country, in many instances, make it illegal to build the kinds of homes that will solve the housing crisis. In particular, I asked the City Council and the Mayor to increase their ambition to allow people who own a piece of land in this city to build up to 4 units as of right without having changes to the way that they need to amend bylaws. It's something you can do. And I'll tell you, the Mayor's response probably led to the most optimistic moment I have had since I assumed this portfolio. He wrote me back and said, we're going to build houses near our post-secondary institutions. We're going to build houses near transit stations. And you know what? They didn't just tell me they were going to legalize housing. Within days, they did it. They hosted a special council meeting where unanimously, 15-0, the council under Josh Morgan's leadership approved 4 units as of right for properties in this city. This is extraordinary. and it's leading to a $74 million contribution from the Housing Accelerator Fund to the City of London that's going to get more homes built in this community. Now, as much as I want to spend my time on the microphone saying thank you to the mayor, and sincerely, Josh, thank you. Your leadership, it's so much bigger than London. This has national implications. But that's not my message today. My message is to every mayor, to every council, to every city, to every community in this country. If you want me to show up, if you want the federal government to show up with financial investments that will directly support your ability to build more homes, give us a reason. A new standard has been set, and we have new expectations. We want you to build houses near transit. We want you to build houses near campuses. We want you to build houses so families can access the services that they need. And we want you to legalize housing. It's not too much to ask. By working together and having the federal government have a direct financial incentive to change the way that cities build houses, we can solve this aspect of the housing crisis. I want to say thank you in particular to the mayor, but also to my colleagues. Peter Fragiskatos and Ariel Keabag are phenomenal local representatives. When I have the benefit of people who can educate me on the challenges and opportunities facing their community, it makes my job an awful lot easier. London is very, very lucky to have their representation. I'm very lucky to serve alongside them in the House of Commons. But if I could conclude with one message. Today isn't about $74 million. It's not just about municipal zoning changes. It's about thousands of families who are going to have a place to live that they might actually be able to afford. And it's about the model that we have created that is going to be replicated in the weeks and months ahead in cities right across Canada, big and small. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. C'est un honneur d'être ici. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, the Mayor of the City of London, Josh Morgan. Josh, please come to the microphone.
Well, first off, let me say thank you. You know, I remember running in a campaign not too long ago, and I said I wanted the city to punch above its weight.
All right, so we're bringing you this live.
City to set an example for the rest of the country, and I can't say how much I appreciate the words that have just been said about the incredible work that we've been trying to do here in this city. I want to recognize members of council in attendance, and usually I go through and I name them, but I think pretty much every member of council is in attendance, because why wouldn't you be for $74 million? I know members of the senior leadership team here are present as well. And let me say, first off, thank you to MPs Fragiskatos and Keabag for being strong advocates for our city. We appreciate having you here. We appreciate your work on the housing file, and we appreciate your advocacy on behalf of our city with the government on many other issues. To Housing and Infrastructure Minister Fraser, you know, I appreciate all of the things that you just said, but I also appreciate our frank and honest dialogue that we had since you become minister about how we work together to actually create housing in this city and in this country. To the Prime Minister, it's always great to have you in the city, not just because you usually bring great announcements, but it's great for you to have.
Well, we've been listening to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau alongside his housing minister making a housing announcement in London. From what we're hearing, that the federal government has reached an agreement with the City of London to fast-track the creation of over 2,000 additional housing units over the next 3 years. This agreement is going to provide $74 million to increase the housing supply in London.